Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fish Tank. Now, another exciting patch notes video for you today for Minion Masters, but this one's going to be a little more condensed than usual. As you may know, we are on the cusp of Minion Masters 2.0, so this is going to be a balance-only patch just to tide us over until that is launched. And when's that going to be? I shall tell you in just a memento. Right, so we're still in the Vanguard expansion, right at the end of it. So, we're going to call this version 1.51.1, I guess. So this is going to be dropping Thursday the 9th of November, so tomorrow, if you're watching this live. We're going to have some new tournaments, as always, and some balance changes. So as mentioned, this is going to be a balance-only patch, so no new content, because the developers, the team at Beater's Wharf are hard at work getting Minion Masters 2.0 ready. And the Minion Masters 2.0 prologue is going to be on December the 12th. So that's going to be kind of an early access Minion Masters 2.0. But at that point, December the 12th, all current players, so that's Xbox and PC, the game is going to update to Minion Masters 2.0. And then we'll get our hands on the brand new version of the game. And of course, be able to give our feedback. Because it's a prologue, kind of early access. It's still part of the development process. So we're going to be able to give feedback on things we like, things we don't like, what could be done better, etc. And hopefully the devs can keep making the product even better. So that's December the 12th, and then early next year we'll have the full launch as well as the mobile launch. So a lot to look forward to, but that's in the future. What do we got to look at today? So, as mentioned, we're going to have the new tournaments. So Knight's Duel number 30, 1v1 single day event. That is going to be on Saturday the 18th of November. And that is going to be a $400 prize pool. So if you're interested in getting involved in that, check out the links in the description. Great to have you there. And of course, my Fishbowl Brawl tournaments, 1v1 and 2v2, play over time events where you get 3 days to complete each of your matches. They start on the 16th of November, and registration for those is open now. So again, check out the link in the description. 21,000 Ruby prize pool for those Fishbowl Brawls. Great to have you there, open to everyone. Right. So let's get into the balance changes. We're going to look at the buffs, nerfs, and rebalances. Of course, rebalances are always things that are changed in multiple ways or we're not sure. Let's have a look at the buffs first of all. So, a buff to Arcane Barrage. The radius is going down. The reason that's a buff is because it makes it easier for you to hit your target of choice. Remember, it does have a big radius, but now it's not so big. Because it will hit randomly whatever's in there. So, a smaller radius means you can hit things more regularly that you wish to. Right, next up, Blood Pact. So the Blood Pact mechanic, this is where the damage that a unit takes is passed on to the master. Previously, it was 85%. It's going down to 75% of damage passed on to the master, including overkill damage, of course. So that's going to affect Blood Imps, Gorik's Gate, and Brutish Betrayer. Next up, we have a health increase for the Demon Warrior. Demon Warrior's kind of been in an awkward struggling spot since it was changed to only be twice as big after the 4th time. So another buff here, health increase. And remember that health will be doubled when it is played after the 4th time. Denver, one of the newer cards. His health is going up from 900 to 1,000. Kind of in an awkward spot. There's 1 or 2 players that I've seen playing him pretty well. But overall, we haven't really seen him too much. People just not really wanting to get involved with Denver. Ghast, one of the worst cards in the game, at least from play rate wise. Last time I checked on my meta analysis, Ghast didn't feature in any single leaderboard deck. So Ghast, he's going to have an attack cooldown reduction. So that means he increases he attacks more quickly. His DPS goes up. So that's a buff. Also, his resurrection cooldown is going down from 2.6 to 2.4 seconds, so he can resurrect more things. The reason those timers are different is his resurrection are not based on him having to kill things, just things dying around him. So that's why those timers can be different. So, increased DPS and increased potential resurrections. Will we see more Ghast? Probably not. Ghost Turret, just simple health increase from 300 to 350. Grasping Thorns. So remember, things that die on the thorns will respawn as the little skeletons, up to a maximum of previously 3, now 4. There is an error in the text on the card where it still says max 3, but I did check it and it does actually go up to 4. So a buff there for Grasping Thorns. Next up we have Jezra the Void Mother. So her damage is going up from 130 to 150. So quite a big damage increase. And of course, with her Void Tear ability, if she kills things, then she gets the mana reduction on the Void Tear. So if she kills more things, which she will do with more damage, then that can increase the number of reductions that you get on the Void Tear. So kind of a double buff there. So now with her damage of 150, she'll single shot things like a Legionnaire on Assassin in 1 hit, whereas previously she would take 2. She is going to get a little bit of a nerf in the form of an Elite Swarmer nerf, which we'll see in a little bit, because of course her ability allows her to spawn Elite Swarmers or Cowardly Imps. Nirvir the Fallen, so simple mana cost reduction, 10 down to 9. Remember, this is Nirvir the Fallen, the card, not the perk from Morelia. That's not going to change. This is just the card in your deck. Slitherbound, so their attack cooldown's going up down for 1.8 to 1.6 seconds, so that's a double buff for them because they do their base damage, their DPS is going to go up, and also they'll apply poison more often, so they can apply more poison and do more base damage. So that's going to affect all cards that are involved with Slitherbound. So Slitherbound, Chain Gang, anything with Slitherbind on it, so kind of an overall Slither faction buff, slightly, depending on which Slither cards you're playing. And another Slither card, Slithering Summons. This is getting a buff in the form of the Sacrifice requirement. You'll only need 2 Slitherbound to sacrifice it instead of 3, so easier to trigger that, and you'll have more left over if you have a lot of them. Right, so those are the buffs. Next up, we're going to look at the rebalances. Remember, this is where things get changed in multiple ways, or it's not necessarily certain if it's a buff or a nerf, or it's a buff in some situations or a nerf in others. So, Bladestar, duration going up from 5 seconds to 6 seconds, but the damage going down from 130 to 110. So remember, the Bladestar will last for either the timer or the number of times it does damage, which is currently 10, whichever comes first. So potentially could be a buff in some situation, but more likely to be a nerf with the damage going down. And the damage dropping from 130 to 110 means it no longer kills Stun Lancers, War Dancers, stuff like that in 1 hit. Still going to be a card that is very strong in the hands of good players and kind of awful in the hands of weaker players. A difficult one for it to balance there. Right, Blood Imps. We saw earlier that the Blood Pact mechanic, the master damage is going down, so that's a buff for the Blood Imps, but their attack cooldown is also going up, so their DPS is dropping. And of course you get 5 of them, so that's quite a substantial reduction in overall DPS. Currently 75, going down to 62.5 overall if you've got all 5 of them. So quite a substantial nerf to Blood Imps, and that's again another card that's kind of awkward to balance because it's terrible at lower ranks and very strong at higher ranks. Right, Elite Swarmer, we alluded to this with the Jezra changes. So Elite Swarmer, one of the highest played cards from my leaderboard meta analysis. Definitely when it comes to minion cards, this is the highest played card. So damage going down from 25 to 20, attack cooldown going up from 1.2 seconds, or sorry, going down also to 1.1 seconds. So attacks more quickly but does less damage. Overall a DPS nerf from 21 to 18. An attack cooldown reduction means it's slightly better against Horde, but overall we're going to see a nerf here. This Elite Swarmer nerf will also be felt by anything else that experiences the Elite Swarmer. So as we mentioned before, Jezra, Morgrul's Ragers, and also the attack cooldown change, the damage change is going to also be on Kurnath. So another unit in that kind of family getting a nerf there. Right, next up, Magnetic Bombs. Mana cost going down from 4 to 3, but their damage dropping from 100 to 80. Very, very low played card again from my meta analysis. Check that out if you're interested to see what's currently strong. So damage reduction means it's going to kill less in one hit. So things like Spear Throwers or Flightless Dragons will no longer die in one hit. But remember that the Magnetic Bombs can attach themselves to neighbouring units, and then you get that big AoE damage. Next up we have Rimagal. So Rimagal removed from the random pool. So it's a change to Rimagal, but kind of it's a buff to the future cards. You're no longer going to get Rimagal from your future past or future present, which can be really bloody annoying. So that's going to be a buff to the future cards, which are seemingly very strong at the moment, especially future present that we've seen. Right, so those are the rebalances. Let's get on to the nerfs. So we'll look at the master nerfs to start with. Apep, attack cooldown going up from 2.2 to 2.4 seconds. So his master defense is going to be worse than it was before. Volko, we saw in the last patch the perk 1 Tempest Flaring cooldown went up from 15 to 17 seconds. Now it's going up from 17 to 20 seconds. So overall, those two patches, quite a substantial nerf. And as always, it's a nerf to perk 1, which means it's going to be a nerf almost across the entire game. So that will definitely affect things in some way. Right, so that's a nerf to Volko. A very heavily played card again, Cage Prowler. It's going to emerge after 22 seconds as opposed to 20. So you could have a little argument, oh, I can bank mana for longer. But of course it means you've got to defend it. You've got to be in a position for it to not take the damage for longer. So overall, that's going to be a nerf. Right, another strong meta card, Cleaver, health going down from 600 to 550. And of course, that's also going to be felt with any other card that gets involved with any Cleaver business. So Doom Cleaver, Goric Brutes, Gorik's Gate, Gorik's Sacrifice, all of those, the Cleaver varieties of those will see a nerf. And next up, Fergus Flagoon Fighter. This is only a change that's going to affect 2v2 gameplay because it's copies allowed. You can no longer wildcard Fergus. And we saw that in the current season. Wildcarded Fergus was very prominent in 2v2 and very, very strong. So no longer you can do that. But of course, no changes to 1v1 gameplay. No wildcards there. Highland Huntress, one of the newer cards. She was very strong on release, kind of getting scaled back a little bit. So now her range is being reduced from 8 to 6. So that's 6 is, I believe, the same range as a Succubus. So not very long range. So overall, against ranged units, she's going to trade less efficiently as before. Prime Sergeant Radic, one of the most played legendary cards, if I remember correctly, in my leaderboard analysis. So he's getting a health reduction from 600 to 550. I think that's quite a healthy change for him because his real strength is his staying power. He can stay on the field, makes it difficult to engage into because he does so much damage to things that are close to him. And of course he can jump back onto bridges and just be sort of a general pain. I would have liked to see some wild cards removed from him as well. But this is, I think, a healthy change overall. Right, Rapid Response Reserves. We know for the last few seasons this card has been the most played card in my leaderboard analysis. Wildly above everything else. All game modes, any Masters, it was there. So it's going to get a nerf. It got a little slap on the wrist in the last patch, but it was kind of irrelevant. This time it's getting a mana cost increase from 2 to 3, and the Plasma Marine count that was reduced previously is getting set back to 6. So now you will pay 3 mana to get arguably 6 mana's worth of stuff, but your opponent will get 4 mana in the form of their reduced cards. So overall, you're kind of losing 1 mana. So I think this could be... It will definitely be felt as a nerf. People would definitely play it less. Maybe you'll still see it in spell synergy decks like Setsu and Milloween, Kurnath, things like that. But I think overall we won't see it quite so much as we did before. And I feel like this kind of fits the theme as the card a little bit more. It was kind of originally called the Emergency Response or something like that. And it feels right that you get the emergency increase of the value for your mana, but overall it's a bit of a negative. So I quite like that change, and we'll see how that affects things out there. Right, next up, Scott the Sensitive Savage. His damage going down from 60 to 55. Again, a very strong card, a very heavily played legendary card, and his DPS is going to go down. He has very, very high DPS, so it will still do what he does, just not as well as he did previously. And next up, Siege Imperator Ruby. Again, a health reduction from 850 to 800, so just reduced staying power from these big cards that we've seen before. And one thing I want to mention, I wanted to do this before, but I kind of forgot. If you follow along with the PTR, you'll know that a lot of these changes that we've seen today are changes that you'd seen before, you may have tested before. Although some of them may have been changed a little bit. But there's also a bunch of changes that are tried out in the PTR that didn't make it through based on the feedback and the discussions. So just very quickly, and just to clarify so nobody gets confused, these are changes that didn't make it through. So there was a proposed change for Beam of Doom reduction down to 550, didn't make it. Living statue damage increased to 160, didn't make it. Puff speed increased to 8, didn't make it. Rendreth damage increased to 180, didn't make it. Gambler's Ball sacrifice cost reduced to 2, didn't make it. Denver damage increased to 180, didn't make it. Bazooka scratch damage increased to 160, didn't make it. Arcane Barrage starts at 4 stacks, didn't make it. I don't know if you're interested in that, but hopefully I made it quite apparent that those changes didn't make it. Right. So, those are the balance changes. As mentioned, a much quicker video this time because there's no new content, just the balance changes. So dropping Thursday the 9th of November. See you there. We got our new tournaments. We got our balance changes. And of course, remember, we're just sort of treading water at the moment. So December the 12th for the MM 2.0 prologue. And just to clarify, there's no rank reset for this patch, so we're just going to be carrying on. I don't think there's going to be a new tri-team tourney. There's no new guild conquest. I don't think. Everything's just going to carry on. So it's not really a reset, new season like we're used to before. This is just balance changes. Right, so that's it. So we got a lot to look forward to, both in the form of this patch and of course Minion Masters 2.0, which will come with its own changes to balance as well, I should think. So that's something that we can certainly look forward to, and of course something that we'll cover here on the Fish Tank. Make sure, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button if you want to make sure you don't miss out on anything Minion Masters related. And if you've enjoyed the video, always give it a thumbs up. That's really appreciated. And if you've got any questions at all, you want to have a chat with me, let me know in the comments below. So I think that's it. Yeah, I don't need to remind you to grab your rewards or anything, because I don't think there's going to be any until the end of this season. So yeah, balance only patch. I'm Bad as a Fish. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And as always, I'm awkwardly waving.